Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions. We're going to wrap up episode number 50 of the CubbyWhole podcast, Sacred Pillars, and then Squirt Dog's got to go get his nails trimmed because I think he's probably sore. His nails are pretty long. I didn't know PetSmart did the nails so cheap. It'll be like $7 when I go there today. And then we'll get some dinner and then probably do some more grinding and probably I need to beat the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, so I'll probably do maybe a couple grinding episodes of that, and then go back to Fallout. Cause June 21st was Go Skate Day. That was awesome. I went skating. I went bombed some hills, did some alleys. That was cool. All right, we're gonna wrap up this episode. Thank you if you made it this far, internet. Let's start grinding.
So, our Son is our Savior. Jesus is known as the Savior, right? So as the sun rises from the east star, it rejuvenates. And that's why we go in search of light towards the east, symbolically, because it's about going towards the direction of truth, to find truth. The sun is the dot within a circle in the solar mythos, and this is the symbol of alchemical gold. It is the direction towards enlightenment. And as one progresses in their work to demystify the self and ascend further up that ladder and look into the sun, into the truth, they will realize that this light symbolically conceals the knowledge of sovereign authority, okay? Of self. Sovereign authority. Having authority over the self and no others, and not allowing anyone to have authority over the self, over their self, right? And they will have enough light to pull the sword from the stone, so to speak, right? To have true care. To have true care, to pull that sword from the stone and be able to take on that responsibility. The solar symbol is, it is a huge, important study. It's incredibly important. It's one of the most important studies you could ever do, actually. Now, as the sun rules the day sky and the 4-season cycle, okay? Then there is the moon, which rules the night sky and the months or the months, okay? It represents the rhythm of time as it embodies the cycle. The moon is lunar, okay? It governs emotion. It's a sacred feminine energy. The moon literally and symbolically receives light from the sun at night to help guide the student through the darkness, the underworld, okay? So literally, if you go outside and look at the moon, you know that it is receiving light from the sun and reflecting it to us. So it's symbolical of that. And this celestial orb symbolizes the mother. It symbolizes fertility, the 13 moon cycles, right? And the moon symbolizes compassion and, giving. Giving received light in the sense of having light to give to others. And it's also about the emotional power, like I said earlier about water, okay? Because it governs our emotions, and it is the protector. The moon is about protection, Look at all those craters on the moon. You think the moon isn't protecting us? And this is also about understanding the waxing and waning of the light reflected off of the moon from the sun. And the symbol for this is the two crescent moons on the left and right side of a full moon, okay? The waxing stage is the growing stage, which is about beginnings and rejuvenation, okay? It's about aligning the beginning breath of fresh air of receiving light or higher knowledge. And waxing is about receiving information. It's like the idea of beginning to fill up your cup. And then, of course, your cup becomes full, like the full moon. And full moon means your cup is full. Okay? You've capped, you're capped out, right? You've capped out for now with light or knowledge, right? It's like the trivium process. You have the input, you have the processing, and then the output, which is the waning, which is rhetoric or wisdom, giving back, pouring out. It's about birth, growth, decay. The moon is also associated with the mother, with the Mother Mary, and also the ancient Egyptian goddess Isis. It's the Holy Ghost, and it's the spirit principle because it's associated with the unseen forces in nature. Now, between the sun and the moon, we see the eye, the all-seeing eye. And this is a really powerful symbol to study and understand. It is a symbol that represents the eye of the all-seeing creator or grand architect of the universe or supreme being, okay? Symbolically, this eye is symbolic of the eye of Shiva. It's also symbolic of the eye of Horus and the eye of Zeus, of divine omniscience, all-knowing, right? This all-seeing eye is also synonymous with the dot within the circle, especially in regards to the ancient Egyptian stellar mythos, right? The dot within the circle was equal to the point at the top of the triangle. And this glyph is equivalent to the eye, the all-seeing eye, which is in this circle of the North Pole star, where there were 7 glorious ones, where there actually is 7 stars, okay? 7 stars that are all grouped together in the constellation of the Little Bear, the constellation that's revolving around what is known to be the Most High. And it's also known to be the Great Judge and, of course, the All-Seeing Eye. And this was symbolized by the pole star, what we now know as Polaris, which was the center of the circumpolar enclosure of the firmament in the north. So the all-seeing eye, the Most High, is the number 7. It's the little bear, okay? And we have to keep in mind that in the north, the pole star Polaris never sets below the horizon line, okay? That's why it's considered the Most High. God is considered the Most High, so it's symbolic of the eye of God. Now, looking at the sun and moon on this tracing board, we have to remember, I said this, this is about the marriage of the left and right, the left brain and the right brain, the alchemical wedding of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, okay? Now think about the general shape of the eye. I want you to look at the slide with the all-seeing eye images, okay? Now, the general shape of an eye is likened to the shape of the Vesica Pisces, right? So, it's like that, the fish symbol that we see on the back of cars that says Jesus in it, okay? Well, that little that little part that looks like the fish minus the fins, that shape, okay? Like a football shape. A 2D football shape, of course. Now, this Vesica Pisces shape is really powerful to pay attention to. We have to understand that this symbol is the symbol of the birth canal. It's, like I said, it's the fish symbol. It's the literal shape of the mother's birth canal. Okay? The general shape of the birth canal. It's symbolically the birth canal of wisdom, because it's the eye, because it's the part of the middle pillar. It's the birth canal of enlightenment. It's the eye of light. But it's about the coming together of the sun and moon energy, the masculine and feminine energy. So input would be the sun, and then the processing being the moon, because being the eye would be the wisdom, right? That's the output. So you can look at this in literal terms, in the sense of intercourse, right? The gestation period, and then birth. So intercourse, the gestation period, and then out comes the baby, right? But it's about the spiritual energies of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine merging into marriage and then generating the eye, okay? So eye does not become enlightened. You don't fill the eye with light until both hemispheres come together in a marriage. And it's also analogous to a human having two eyes that we can see, right? And then one eye we can see with, okay? And of course, that one eye being the third eye, the pineal gland. Now, when there's a solar eclipse, when the moon eclipses the sun, this is a symbolic marriage of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. This is where we get the wedding ring made by the sun's light, the ring of light around the moon as the moon eclipses the sun. So you'll see the moon becoming really dark, and then you'll see this really bright ring around the moon, which is the sun. And then there's, you'll typically see a little spark of light on that ring, which sparks like a sparkle of a diamond ring. Okay, that's one reason I believe the diamond ring is so big in traditional marriage. That can't be wrong. There's no coincidence there. Okay, so it's really, really sacred. It's a very sacred thing to understand. Oh man, this fly just keeps flying in my face, and I'm gonna knock him out. Now, looking at an actual eye where the pupil is really big and there's only a small ring of the color of the eye around the black part, this is really important to recognize, okay? And this is an incredible correspondence to the eclipse, which is in correspondence to the all-seeing eye. I mean, it's just, I have no words. It's just amazing that we can actually look into our eye and see that ring of color around our black pupil and recognize that this is exactly like the eclipse. And then how the eclipse is in correspondence to the all-seeing eye, which is erected by the sun and moon coming together in a marriage, in an alchemical marriage. I mean, it's beautiful. And I hope you're following along and looking at the slide that shows the all-seeing eye, the Vesica Pisces, the eclipse, and then someone's eye with the ring of color around the pupil. I mean, it is really interesting. Now, the pupil being big is about taking in lots of information as well as seeing with light in the dark. That's why our pupils get, really big in low lit areas. So that's important to keep in mind, how it corresponds in that way. Now, another thing to consider about the eye is about cone vision, right? The cone is really, really important to understand when we're studying the eye, because it holds the mystery of the circled dot, as well as the all-seeing eye and the Christmas tree. Okay, yes, even the Christmas tree. It's about seeing with one, okay? Think of the word cone, to see with one, because the letter C is with one. All right? Now, something I want you to figure out on your own within this tracing board is I want you to take your time, take your eyes, and follow where I guide you. I want you to start at the bottom of the ladder, okay? And move your eyes up the ladder to the sun. Then over to the eye in the middle. And on over to the moon. Now, what your eyes just traced is a really important symbol that can be revealed when this image is flipped either north or south. And maybe you've already figured it out by now, but it's there for you to learn and understand. I mean, all of this is really, but I'm leaving it up to you to reveal that secret to yourself, okay? This tracing board takes lots of concentration, okay? You hear that fly? I'm gonna knock you out, man. Better leave me alone. I mean, he's just been buzzing around my head this whole time. I must stink or something. Must need a shower. But this trestle board, this tracing board takes a lot of concentration and meditation, And it's when we focus our attention and really ruminate on this, on what we know, then what happens is there comes this contemplation, okay? Looking and thinking on this image for a long period of time is what really reveals the secrets of self. And I really just can't stress that enough. I mean, I have this image hanging up in my room right now, and I'm always just staring at it and looking for something. And, sometimes I get to a place where I know that I'm overlooking, and that's okay. But sometimes all it takes is me doing some research, and all of a sudden something comes out of it. Just when you thought that this image couldn't possess any more knowledge. It fools you in that way because you just don't know until you actually possess the right type of knowledge that this board will help unveil the mystery of what you know. Okay? Now, I want you to find the slide with the first degree tracing board on its right side, where the north is up and then the south is down, where the lunar pillar is on the bottom and then the solar pillar is on the top, okay? One thing we need to keep in mind when studying the occult and the mind is how our brain hemispheres are interacting and how they work, and also how they are in correspondence to the Earth hemispheres. And I know that's a very abstract thing to contemplate, but it's how we understand the small picture and the big picture, you know, how they correspond to each other. So looking at the tracing board on its right side with the direction west on the left and the direction east on the right, we see that the ladder still directs us up towards light, okay? And that's really important that we pay attention to that, okay? This is about understanding, this whole image is about understanding astrotheology, the science of celestial bodies and their cycles. You know, the study of allegorical symbolism within the zodiac, along with, you know, biblical texts. Okay? So this is still about the spiritual journey of man. Okay? So the west side, the checkerboard floor side, represents Earth and represents the prison that man is born into, you know, the natural state of ignorance or base consciousness. All right, I'm gonna almost got him. Daggone fly. So, like I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by that fly again, this is about understanding that Earth is to the west. So the checkerboard floor is on the west side of this map, okay? And this is about our natural state of ignorance. It's about base consciousness. It's about darkness, okay? And the vertical and horizontal lines of the checkerboard floor are in relation to longitude and latitude of the Earth, okay? So the top masculine pillar pointing to the sun is the zodiacal sign of the Tropic of Cancer. And this is about the sun being in its highest point in the midsummer, okay? So the Tropic of Cancer is a parallel of the latitude on Earth, which is 23.5 degrees north of the equator. And on the northern summer solstice and the southern winter solstice, around the 21st of June each year, the sun reaches its most northerly declination of 23.5 degrees, okay? Now down to the pillar pointing to the moon, this is representative of the Tropic of Capricorn. And the Tropic of Capricorn, or the Southern Tropic, is the circle of latitude that contains the subsolar point at the December or, you know, southern solstice. It's at the polar opposite side of the sun's northern summer solstice, okay? It's where the sun is at during the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, okay? So that's really important that we understand the locations and keep ourselves oriented, all right? we have to understand that the sun being on the top and to the east is about summer solstice and day sky. And the moon represents the sun at its lowest point or in the night sky, because when the sun goes below the horizon, we get the night sky and typically the moon, right? And of course, the sun going to its lowest point in the winter. So the sun going to its lowest point in the winter is symbolic on this map by the moon. The moon represents the sun in the winter solstice, okay? Now looking at the three lights in the east, okay? The three lights meaning the sun, the moon, and the eye, which also represents the stars and planets, okay? And that's really important because it's about understanding that as we work from the west to the east spiritually, we find light. We are in the search of light. We are gaining light. We are becoming knowledgeable of self. We are going from base consciousness and earthly desires towards enlightenment. And this corresponds to the zodiac. And it's really important that we stay oriented, because what this board shows is going from west to east, and it is symbolic of going from, the southwest where darkness is darkest, and then up towards light, which is northeast, which is the direction of enlightenment. Okay? Now, not only is this important when studying astrotheology and man's spiritual journey, but it's also important to recognize how it's been corrupted with the solar being dominant as in, male dominator patriarchy, right? What Doug refers to as primacy in the north, where the world aggregate of consciousness has gone into a material masculine imbalance within, okay? Which then has manifested out into the world, which we can obviously observe as something that has definitely been taking place for thousands of years, okay? But what we have to remember is it's about realizing that the goal in nature is triangle on top of the square, as the stellar pyramid builders have preserved for us to remember about ourselves, which is spirit over the physical, and not the other way around, with material over the spirit, as what we see today. So in other words, today it's mostly square over the triangle in the aggregate, which is an inverted house or temple. And that's not a good thing, okay? We have to remember that the spirit is associated with the sacred feminine, which is the lunar principle, the sacred feminine energy, okay? So it's important that we remember that the ladder going to the sun strictly means going solely to the light, okay? To enlightenment, but east and right, okay, because east and right is the goal in this earth map, with all three lights to the right, to the east, which is about balance and equilibrium. And it's about balancing the hemispheres of the brain, which then helps balance the rest of the world, because the earth is corresponding to our hemispheres. And that's, like I said, that's a very abstract thing, and it's something that I will definitely be getting into on this show in further episodes, okay? But if we look deeper into this image, we will find that the earth or checkerboard area with the three pillars all together, this creates the symbol of the capital E, okay? So looking at the slide with the capital letter E up on the top, okay? The capital letter E is really, really esoteric to understand. In this image, this symbol, this capital letter E stands for many, many things, including Earth, because as we see, this image on its side represents Earth and its seasons, right? And it also represents esoteric, because this is dealing with the inner world. And then you have the word erect, because it's about erecting the pillars, okay? And then you have equality, because it's about natural law. It's about all men are equal under natural law. It's about equilibrium, because that's the goal of Freemasonry. That's the goal of the initiate, okay? And then you have equinox, because it's also about the spring and fall equinox, especially in regards to the journey in consciousness. And then you have equator, because it's dealing with the earth and winter and summer solstices and the north and the northern and southern hemispheres, okay? Then you have the word east, because east is the direction towards light, towards the rising sun. It's towards the Savior, right? Then you have eclipse, because the eclipse is about the solar eclipse of the moon and the sun, the marriage. And then you have ether, because ether is the fifth element associated with spirit. And that's what this whole image is about. It's about understanding the unseen realm. And then you have the word I, E-Y-E, because this whole image represents the vision of the all-seeing eye. You also have the word L, E-L, the name for God, okay? And then you have the word enlightenment, as this whole image is about guiding the student towards enlightenment. And maybe you'll find more words that go with this image. But the last capital letter E word, which is what really needs to be recognized, as this word is really the symbol and place that bears the origins of the knowledge of this E, is Egypt. And Egypt is the magical land where this science is preserved, and the greatest monuments ever built. Okay? That's what this map does. It traces us back into antiquity. It's about rememberment, to remember ourselves because we've been dismembered. So tracing ourselves through remembering with the higher knowledge, right? Oh, and don't forget entered apprentice. So entered, E stands for entered. Now, in Harold Bailey's book, The Lost Language of Symbolism, he speaks about the capital letter E being equivalent to the letter of light, okay? The 5 points of E caused it to be regarded as equivalent to the 5-pointed star of Solomon's seal. And it's also the 5th letter in the English alphabet, as well as the Egyptian, Phoenician, Greek, and Latin alphabets, okay? It forms the key of light. And this leads me to the Greek scholar and philosopher Plutarch of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, okay, who wrote Moralia. And Moralia means moral, okay? He said that the capital letter E is the number 5, which is the marriage of the feminine number 2 and the masculine number 3. And the number 2 being feminine, okay? Because in the case of divisions in equal parts, the even number being parted equally in 2 parts leaves behind a receptive principle, which is feminine, okay? So it's a space between 2. And the odd number 3 is treated in the same way, but the middle part of the 3 still survives, which means it is productive of division, in which the way it is, in this way it is more generative than the other. And when the 3 and the 2 are united, the 3 prevails, but it never overcomes, because the 2 comes from both with no conjunction of the 2, of the 2 numbers, whereas the odds, the 3, it does in all, okay? Now, think of what I said about the Father, the Spirit, and the Son. The Pythagoreans designated the 5 to marriage as being generated through the resemblance of the odd number to the male and the even to the female, which ended up being called nature. I definitely recommend reading Plutarch's Moralia essay. There's a lot of really interesting information in there. Definitely something I'd like to further my studies into. But another thing I want to mention about the capital E in this sideways image of the tracing board is this is the symbolic reason why knowledge is so important. We read and write from left to right, corresponding from west to east. From west to east. You know, taking in knowledge and writing it down is the act of the direction east. So we can look at the tracing board on its right side as how we trace the direction we act on, how we, trace our alphabetical letters in the right direction, how we trace them down by investigating their origins as well, okay? And this can be in either direction, being east being up or east being right, okay? Now earlier I mentioned the key being the heart or care, right? When we're looking at this image on its side, okay, we see the gravity of the earth pulling that key towards the west, okay? And what I've come to understand is when we know that the key equals heart and care, then we can compare it to the ancient Egyptian Hall of Judgment, where the heart is weighed against the feather, right? Is the key too heavy? Is the student not aligned in truth? Is the heart not as light as the feather? Is the key not as light as the feather? Okay? These are the serious questions that the student will ask or needs to ask. Okay. Now, looking at this trestle board, the corner tassels found at each corner of the first degree tracing board, these symbolize the 4 cardinal virtues, which are fortitude, temperance, justice, and mercy. These tassels represent the whole spiritual lodge, and they also symbolize the bond of love, as well as the mystic tie that binds the craft, this whole craft spread out into one band of spiritual brotherhood.
That's it.
And the tassellation that you see, the little lightning looking arrangement attached to the tassels, you can look at the tassellation as a cord in a crinkled or crimped pattern, symbolizing that this information within this image is within, it's crimped. And then as we share this knowledge, it can be spread out, okay? Out to all four corners of the earth. So just imagine this image can be crimped further and scaled down and concealed within, or it can be expanded further by all four tassels being pulled in all four directions. Now think of that symbolically, okay? That's what we have to think about with all this stuff, symbolically. And this whole image is also what's known as the Master's Carpet. It's a magic carpet, okay? It conceals the 3 steps or 3 stages of human life, including youth, manhood, and old age. It's a simplified and more magical form of the ladder. It pervades, or it's present in all systems of initiation from the ancient world up until now. And what does this magic carpet do symbolically? Of course,
Sweet.
It flies, right? It goes where the pilot guides it, right? And it defies gravity, right? So why would that be? Because it's, just some made up nonsense? No, it's because it's an allegory of having light, to be light. Because light can be the opposite of the physical world and its gravity. The more we gain light about ourselves, the lighter we become spiritually. And the more we learn about ourselves, the less we'll need this ladder to go up and down, because we will have the knowledge, we'll have the light to be able to fly, because we're light in weight, symbolically. We're able to fly or move around anywhere in our lodge, our grand library lodge, our grand library of consciousness. We can draw out from this tracing board without tracing. I mean, there's just so much more to this tracing board, and I could go on, but I think it's important that if you've made it this far, it's really up to you to want to know more at this point. So, and something else I want to say is, I really hope that if you are a student of this craft and you already know this type of information, I hope maybe I've pointed out some things new to you. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and I hope you've gained lots of light from this episode, especially if you're a beginner or you're just now being initiated. The pillars and everything in between really are analogous to the scrolls, in the sense that there's so much to learn between them, right? That's what it's symbolically saying. The pillars are a fundamental, symbolic, and eternally synchronistic measurement of the whole spiritual realm. So if anyone is interested in more content, there's more shows, presentations, and news, which can be found at CubbyWhole.com. Also, please definitely make sure to not miss the next shows, where I'll be going further into esoteric Freemasonry and explaining the G-square, as well as going into the Fellowcraft degree. And as I said on the last show, it's not a good idea to get this far and not go any further, because a little bit of knowledge can be a very dangerous thing. So if you have any questions regarding these topics for these shows, please email me at cubbyhole@mail.com. Also, any donations are always appreciated, as anything that's given goes directly to the CubbyWhole website to keep it up, to keep it running and up to date. So just hit the donation button on the website at the top, and it's set up pretty easy to navigate from there. And I just want to say thanks so much to those who have donated so far. Okay, I'm your host, Nate Cap. Thank you for listening, and keep in mind, do no harm, defend truth, and keep transcending dogma.
All right, that was another fantastic episode. There was a lot of dense information, and like what Nate said, that you need a lot of prerequisite knowledge to understand the allegory that is pointing out about these tracing boards. There was a lot of, man, what was that for? That was weird. That was some good. Those were actually a couple of fun episodes. I hope everybody at Skatopia on the farm is having fun, being safe. The bonfires at midnight tonight. It's gonna be nuts. I wish somebody would like go live or something, but I guess there's not. They still don't have internet out there. Anyways, thank you if you made it this far. We're gonna keep doing more episodes. Episode 51's coming up, coming in hot here. I'll do it. I'll record tonight and then maybe upload it tomorrow before I go to work. Thank you again if you made it this far. If you want to support the channel, use code BeagleEyeVision at w.gg. Stay tuned and stay golden.